Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to episode 4. Before I start the episode, I just want to let you know I had some audio difficulties, aka my mic died during recording, so I had to use my backup laptop audio. Fun, right? Well, I just want to apologize for the change in quality. The issue has now been resolved for episode 5. Thank you for your understanding, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Murder Road Trip. I'm your host, Haley, and joining me on today's road trip to Plano, Texas, is Yolanda Norris. Today we will be snacking on Dr. Pepper and Snickers as we discuss the murder of Susan Loper. Yolanda is the host of the Not Perfect or Functional podcast. Yolanda, can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Sure, Haley. Not Perfect or Functional is hosted by me and my husband, Mark. We're an opposites attract married couple. We discuss subjects where we found common ground, including true crime, sports, pop culture, and whatever else happens to pop in our heads. We have a common love of sarcasm also.
Thank you for telling us about your podcast and for being my road trip buddy. When I have a co-host, I usually ask them what topic they would like to discuss. Yolanda, what made you pick the murder of Susan Loper for today's road trip?
Well, this was a local story to the area that I live in. I remember this story and I thought it was pretty interesting just because of the outcome of what happened with Susan and her assailant.
Yes, he is very interesting, to say the least.
He's pretty different.
All right, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
We lost the station again.
Keep trying.
Hold on. Let me try this one.
Stop. That's it. Turn it up. Turn it up. In the spring of 2006, although she was still married, Susan Loper began dating Terrence Black after a friend introduced them. The two dated on a steady basis for a year, but would continue to date on and off again until their permanent breakup.
Susan and her husband Craig were divorced in 2007, and the couple remained friendly and would often spend time together with their son Jake. In May of 2009, Susan was pregnant with Terrence's child, but she opted for an abortion. Terrence was very unhappy with Susan's decision. He said, "You killed my kid. I'm going to kill you someday." Susan and Terrence broke up permanently in August of 2009.
Yeah, that would make me break up with someone, that's for sure.
Yeah, not a good sign.
No. In January of 2010, Susan Loper met Jason Hayes through the dating website eHarmony. In February, they were an official couple. In May, Terrence found out that Susan was dating Jason. He took flowers to her mother, Catherine's house. Terrence told Catherine that he knew Jason, and that Jason had baggage. He also told Catherine that he thought Susan and Susan's son Jake would make such a nice family. Catherine recalled Terrence as being very agitated and obsessive.
That's a red flag if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, you're going to go to someone's mother's house and tell her, "Oh, I think we would be great together." I mean, it's a little odd.
Yeah, especially so many months after they started dating
And after she broke up with him.
yeah. I cannot imagine what Susan's mom was thinking.
No. I mean, it would have made sense if he had done it, say, in August of 2009, but not that many months. You're right. That many months after is just weird.
It is. On April 19th, 2011, Susan left for work between 5:15 and 5:30 a.m., drove to Starbucks, and arrived at the Glen Eagles Country Club in Plano, Texas at around 6 a.m. Susan had worked for the country club for 16 years as a Pilates instructor. It was her last day at the club. She had started her own Pilates studio and would be moving there soon.
One of Susan's clients, Terry Kennedy, showed up for her standing appointment at 6:15 a.m. When she arrived, she noticed that Susan's car was not in the parking lot and the studio lights were off. Terry texted Susan, but never received a reply. Later, Cruz Hernandez, a housekeeper at the club, found a purse on the ground by the back door of the Pilates studio. He gave the purse to a supervisor, who in turn gave it to the receptionist. Neither one looked inside the purse.
That kind of surprised me that neither one of them looked inside of the purse, like, immediately to see whose it was.
Well, it surprised me that nobody went through the purse and, like, took the money out. Especially
Yeah.
Cruz. Just kidding.
At 10 a.m., more clients arrived at the studio for their appointment with Susan. The clients did not see Susan's vehicle in the parking lot, and the studio lights were still off. An employee stopped by the studio to turn the lights on, and one client noticed that the room divider had fallen over, a plant was on the ground, and glass shards were on the mat. She also saw Starbucks spilled on the floor and more. There had obviously been a struggle. The client called the general manager, and the general manager asked the receptionist to look inside the purse to find identification. The ID showed that the purse was Susan Loper's. The general manager called the police.
The first officer to arrive at the studio was Joel Scott. Scott immediately realized there had been a struggle. He also noticed blood on the floor and 2 unfired rounds of ammunition. Scott requested backup, and more officers arrived at the scene. The officers found many things at the scene, including a significant amount of blood in the driveway in front of the building, a small amount of blood outside the back door and in the studio, an unfired round of ammunition in the bushes outside of the front door, and a Starbucks cup with a time-stamped receipt marking the purchase at 5:45 a.m. Officers also noticed that Susan's purse and cell phone had not been taken, but her keys and SUV had been. They quickly realized that this was not a robbery. It was a violent kidnapping that occurred at around 6 a.m.
I thought it was really cool that they were able to figure that all out within just a few minutes of arriving at the scene. They didn't waste any time.
No, they didn't. They really didn't. It was a good thing. I mean, unfortunately, it probably didn't matter how quickly they found it, but...
One of the detectives on the scene, Bruce Fanning, went to visit Susan's boyfriend, Jason. Jason had recently been helping Susan get ready to move her Pilates studio to her new location. The couple spent several hours together on April 17th, but did not see each other on the 18th. They planned to meet during the afternoon of April 19th to move the studio. On the morning of the 19th, Jason got up at around 6:15 a.m., did an exercise program, and got ready for work. He was a pharmaceutical rep. He then left his home, went to a Burleson doctor's office, and logged in at 8:02, and the doctor signed a form at 8:18 a.m. Jason told Fanning that everyone loved Susan, except for her ex-boyfriend, Terrence Black. Detective Fanning said Jason was cooperative, and his response was consistent with someone who found out their loved one was missing.
Next, David Fanning and another detective, Epperson, traveled to Susan's home to speak with her parents. Susan's parents watched Susan's son Jake while she worked. Susan's boyfriend Jason later arrived at the house. Epperson spoke with Jason and also believed he was cooperative and had a consistent response. Susan's parents told the detectives about Terrence and how their relationship had ended badly. Terrence had become obsessed, and his actions could be described as smothering. Terrence tried multiple times to get back together with Susan, but she always refused, and he would become angry. Detectives also learned that Terrence often tried to give Susan expensive gifts, like a laptop or a flat-screen TV.
Wow.
Yeah, if she doesn't want you back, I don't think a laptop's going to do it.
Right. But maybe the flat screen TV would have.
Depends on the size.
I didn't ever find any of this in my research, and I don't know if you did either, but I never found if she filed a police report prior for his behavior.
I wondered that too, yeah.
Because his behavior was not okay and very consistent with a domestic violence relationship. And
I did try to look, but I didn't see a whole lot of where he was acting completely violently. I think he was being kind of sneaky.
Yeah, I think the behavior was, you're right, it was basically pretty stalkerish, but not violent. More like it just came off as him being overly nice.
Yeah, I think at least at first.
Right, but then he would escalate and get angry.
Yeah, that's typical.
Yeah. After talking to Susan's parents, the detectives headed to Terrence's house in Frisco, but he was not there. Meanwhile, Detective Fred Garcia reviewed the country club's security video recordings. Although the video was grainy, he was able to make out a vehicle pulling into the parking lot at approximately 5:55 a.m. The driver got out of the vehicle and walked toward the studio. At 6 a.m., a person walked toward the vehicle, and seconds later, a white SUV pulled into the driveway by the studio. At 6:01, the driver exits the vehicle, leaves the driver's side door open, walks in front of the SUV toward the studio. Less than a minute later, a person walks from the rear of the SUV to the open driver's door. The same person then walks back around to the rear of the vehicle and stays there for a minute. Then the person walks to the front of the SUV, gets in the driver's seat, closes the door, and drives away at 6:02.
That was a lot of information. But what I think happened was that Susan parked her white SUV at 5:55 and walked into the studio. Between 5:55 a.m. and 6 a.m., Terrence got into the studio, stole Susan's keys, then walked toward the SUV. At 6:01, he pulled it into the driveway, exited the vehicle, and left the door open as he went back into the studio to bring Susan to the SUV. There weren't actually two cars, it was Susan's SUV both times.
Yeah, it is kind of confusing, and I think we'd probably have more information if the camera had been in a different spot.
Right, they said a lot of the camera view was obstructed by bushes and things like that.
Police found a significant amount of blood near where the passenger side of the SUV would have been while the SUV was parked in the circular drive.
Next, the detectives found out that Susan had a toll tag in the 2010 white Toyota RAV4 she was borrowing from her parents. The toll tag records showed the SUV entered the Dallas North Tollway at 6:12 a.m., traveling northbound. The SUV exited the toll road at Lebanon Road at 6:16, re-entered at 6:36, exits, re-enters again, then finally exits on a free exit. So I can tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, please do.
The Dallas Tollway and the toll tag is, for people that don't understand what a toll tag is, you get a toll tag, you use it on your car, and you can access the toll road without having to pay a regular paper bill that comes in the mail. So this toll tag tracks where you are. You can take pictures of your license plates, and they use it a lot around here. I've gotten bills in the mail when you don't have enough money in your toll tag or that sort of thing. But basically what it sounds like happened here is that he entered the tollway going north, so that would be coming up towards Frisco from Plano. And then he exited near where he lived. And then he re-entered and exited and then came back on and then exited again. So he was basically doing, sounds like, and they didn't specify whether he was going north and south, but it sounded like he was. And what I think he was doing was looking for a place to get off that was inconspicuous.
Which is so interesting because it seems like he planned the rest of the murder, like he knew to get her in the car, but then he never really planned on what would happen after.
Yeah, and I think it's because, well, what some of the evidence comes up here in a little bit on what actually ended up happening. Because I don't think it all went exactly as he expected.
Yeah, I don't think that it probably ever does.
Well, when you're crazy,
Yeah.
you're not thinking quite straight. I mean, I can understand that you're right. I think he planned the first part of the murder well, and the outcome of it, I think, was something completely different.
Mm-hmm. Police found Susan's RAV4 in the parking lot of an apartment complex located less than a mile from the country club. There was blood and hair on the right front passenger window, a large amount of blood in both the front and back seats, and a bloody handprint on the outside of the SUV. There was no distinguishable fingerprints on the handprint. Most likely the person was wearing a latex glove. Green vegetation was also found on the vehicle's front grille, right front floor mat, and right front running board. Hair recovered from the driver's side of Susan's SUV had similarities to Terrence's hair. The DNA from the gearshift in the headrest was consistent with a mixture from Susan, Terrence, and an unknown person. And I just want to say this. It's going to come up later when he goes to trial and the defense is like, because his hair is in there doesn't mean anything. This was a 2010 RAV4 and they broke up in 2009. Why would one of his hairs be in her car, let alone her parents' car?
That's true. I didn't even catch that. Good catch.
Thank you so much.
I think you should be a detective.
I would love to.
I could totally see that. Oh my goodness. So police obtained a search warrant for Terrence Black's house and searched his home on April 20th, 2011 at 5:30 a.m. Terrence was not home. The house was clean and there was no blood evidence, gun, or ammunition present. However, detectives did find handwritten notes and printed documents in a desk drawer. The printed documents did not mention Susan's name. One was titled Chapter 6, Easing Back into Your Relationship. The handwritten notes did mention Susan by name. One handwritten note was titled Magic Formula, and it said, 1. I desire my lover, Susan, to love me and only me. I want her to be faithful to me, love me unconditionally, and be loyal to me. 2. I will always receive whatever I ask for. 3. I will not question or judge how it will come about. If I make no judgment by myself, whatever I wish for will be granted. 4. I will express my gratitude.
What is happening?
Dear Lord. This guy is insane. I don't even know where to start with this.
I don't know. It's just creepy.
I always receive whatever I ask for. Okay.
I just think it's like, I desire my lover to love me and only me.
Was he like trying to put this out in the universe? Like, this is gonna happen. Is that what he was doing? It was like in a magic board? Is that what he was doing?
It was like magic formula, but he didn't tell like how many parts of each he needed. Like 1 cup of I desire my lover, 1 teaspoon of I always receive whatever I ask for. Like, are these equal parts? Like, a 4th cup of each? I don't understand his formula.
I will express my gratitude. That's the outcome, apparently, of the formula.
I guess. He's like, I will thank you if you give me what I want.
Okay, that just shows you how completely clueless this man was.
Oh, yeah. Oh, can you imagine being those detectives and finding those notes and just being like, oh, God.
I would probably, that would probably scare me more than anything, even the blood,
Mm-hmm. Because this really showed how obsessed he was.
Oh, yeah. And, it's really unfortunate that didn't come about in some other way. And I really wonder if it did. I wonder if he was sending any of these kind of things to her by email or, verbally or anything, and she was ignoring it.
Right. It would be interesting to know. After searching Terrence's residence, officers headed to the Lebanon Road exit. This was the exit the vehicle had been off on for the longest amount of time. Officer Joel Scott looked near a field, found fresh tire marks, and followed them by foot. Scott found Susan Loper's body at 8:35 a.m. Her body was nude from the neck down. She had a sweater covering her face. Her arms were over her head. Her pants and underwear were around her ankles. One shoe was on and the other was nearby. Scott also found 2 unfired bullets within 20 feet of Susan's body. The medical examiner was called to the crime scene. He determined that the back of Susan's skull was, quote, eggshell, meaning it was completely fragmented and caved in. The autopsy showed that she died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head. She had 1 blow to the forehead and at least 7 blows to the back of the head, all with hard objects. The trauma indicated that there was intent to kill, and there was no sign of sexual assault even though she was found nude.
It sounds like he was trying to make it look like it was somebody other than him that did this.
Right.
That she was kidnapped for a rape.
Yeah, that was so weird. You're right. I didn't even think about that, but it was weird to leave her nude like that.
Well, and also, I mean, I can get a little psychological here, but sometimes, it's like if she disrespected him that way, maybe that was what he did to her after death.
That's very true.
But so this exit where he left her, I pass this every day. It's literally a little side road. There used to be nothing there. They're starting to build in there now. And it wasn't even a road. It was kind of a dirt road. But exactly where her body was found, I can tell. I saw a picture from the crime scene photos, and I can tell exactly where they found her body. And I pass it literally every day as I'm about to get on the tollway.
Wow.
It's a little creepy. I think about her. I do think about her every time. Ever since we've started looking at this, I kind of think about her and think about her family and what they've been going through with having had to deal with this.
And I kind of wonder, he would have been dumping her body between 6:16 and 6:36 a.m. How many people are on the road at that time?
There's a lot.
Yeah, and how did nobody notice this guy driving in a field?
That area, if he had pulled up and off... Now, let's see. This was in April. So, it would have been light. It should have been light. If it was December, then I could understand. It still would have been dark. But he sounds like he took a major chance.
Right.
And the thing is, there's a lot of up and down the tollway on either side. Frisco is one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S., period.
Oh, wow.
And so even during that time, it was less populated, but you could even see in the police photos, there's a housing complex back behind there. You could see.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it wasn't real close. It kind of distorted it where it looked like it was closer. That entire area is trees. They were native trees that had not been taken down or anything yet. They're still there.
So when I saw the picture you're talking about of the crime scene, it seemed, and I'll go ahead and post it online, but it seemed like there were trees and then a blank spot with no trees, and then you could see the housing development in the background, and then there were more trees on the right side. It seemed like her body was dumped where there were no trees.
I think he went up to the tree line and just dumped her there. I think he wanted someone to find her fairly quickly because he didn't make... Well, and again, because he would have had to drive up and over like the edge of the road. So there was like a concrete... It was set up to eventually have a road go right through there. They're almost to that point now. Okay. But I think that he was trying to dump her as quickly as possible.
Do you think that she was still alive when he took her out there? Do you think he grabbed her at the country club, put her in the car, and then drove her out there and then smashed her head in with the gun? Or do you think she was dead already?
No, I think she was dead already. I think the live rounds that they found at the scene, I think those rounds were... he intended to shoot her at that point. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, he didn't get the job done, so he beat her in the head with the gun. At least until unconsciousness. And then I think he transported her.
Right.
But the weird thing was where it said that there were 2 more live rounds at the scene where they found the body. I think that he may have tried to shoot her again there.
Right. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was unconscious, but she was still breathing. And he was like, I gotta finish the job.
Yeah, finish it. Or he really wanted to use that gun.
True, but did not work for him. I wonder if he kidnapped her and then was, get back together with me or I'm going to kill you. And then she said no, and he just got so angry that he just kept hitting her and hitting her and hitting her. Because he obviously had some anger if he was able to make her skull into eggshell.
I kind of believe that he was at his breaking point, that he didn't even give her that option at that point. One of Terrence's neighbors sent him a text saying she was sorry for what had happened to Susan. Terrence replied, "What happened to Susan? I've been out of town since Monday." He said he was in El Paso because he needed to get away. The neighbor didn't want to break the news to Terrence through text, so she said Terrence should call her. He did 20 minutes later, and she told him what happened. She said he seemed upset, and she asked Terrence when he last spoke to Susan. Terrence said it was in December of 2010. Police obtained Terrence's cell phone records and found that Terrence had not been in El Paso since Monday. In fact, he'd been in Frisco at 7:28 a.m. on April 19th. By 7:57 a.m., he was in Southwest Frisco, and at 8:09 he was buying gas before he began traveling west. He was in El Paso by 6:29 p.m., and then in New Mexico by 9:40 p.m. Terrence drove through New Mexico the next morning and arrived in Flagstaff, Arizona at 2:44 p.m.
How convenient that he was in El Paso getting away when his ex that he stalked was murdered.
Yeah, and based on this timeline, he basically got in the car and he booked it because El Paso is not close.
So he dumped her body by 6:36 at least, because then he was back on the road. Then he must have taken the car to the apartment complex, got his car back, booked it. He never went back home. He already had all of his stuff. So where did he go to wash off and everything?
Oh, that's right, because they didn't find blood.
They found nothing at his house.
Yeah, well, the area where they found the car, it was an apartment complex. So he probably could have gone into, it's a really populated area. He could have gone into any gas station or pretty much anywhere, probably. Maybe he had clothes with him, so maybe he changed his clothes and dumped his others.
He had to be so bloody.
At least, yeah.
Because there was blood everywhere with her, and we know head wounds bleed like crazy.
And he also had to carry her into the car, so...
Right. On April 22nd, Grand Canyon Park Rangers received a call about a panhandler at a scenic overlook. The Rangers found Terrence talking to a group of about 6 people. They asked Terrence for identification, but he said he lost his money belt. He told the Rangers his name was Jeffrey Stevens and gave them a random date of birth. The Rangers told Terrence they didn't find anyone in their system by that name and date of birth. Terrence said he was going to go look for his money belt and started walking down a trail. The Rangers told Terrence to stop, but he went down a steep slope at the edge of the canyon and suddenly jumped. He landed 25 feet down in a sloped area with thickets. He appeared to be unconscious at first, but then he sat up and began moving around. The Rangers told him not to move because he was at danger of falling into the real Grand Canyon. A tactical rope team reached Terrence and removed him from the slope. The Rangers found Terrence's driver's license partially buried in the dirt near where they first encountered him. 2 days later, the Rangers went back to the area to see if Terrence left anything else. They found his key fob partially buried in the dirt. And 2 days later, at a different location, the Rangers found a handwritten note that said, "Family, so sorry for all of the pain. I've been in pain for a while now. Debts were too high, school too long, and made too many mistakes in my life. Thanks for all you have done, especially Wendy and her support. I just can't mooch any longer. Pray for me. Love you all. Rants." And the other side of the note had the message, "Extremely depressed. Someone killed Susan. She was amazing." Okay, I cannot handle the fact that he jumped into the Grand Canyon.
Okay, what I can't handle is the fact that he didn't actually jump into the Grand Canyon. 25 feet. You've got the entire Grand Canyon. This thing is huge. It goes on forever. You made it 25 feet.
God, he's a failure at life.
Seriously. Well, and here's the other really funny part. Okay, so he jumps 25 feet. He lands in this thicket. He's obviously hurt. 25 feet is a long way down.
Oh, yeah.
And as you can tell by his pictures later on, he really did get injured.
Oh, yeah.
But, so he's sitting there, they're trying to work to get down there to to get him out of there. And they find his ID partially buried. He didn't have the ability to flick it into the Grand Canyon.
Right, they would have never found it.
No! The key fob, too. But I don't know, maybe he really was that injured at that point, but he sat up. Oh, yeah, that, and the note, it was like her death was just like a side note to his stupid suicide note.
I also don't like that he goes by Rance.
Ugh. He makes me sick. Okay, so the picture that you found of him with the necklace, you will have to post that, please.
Oh, yeah, that's a Rance.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
God, rancid is more like it. And I just have to say, he looks like Regina George from Mean Girls wearing that stupid halo.
Okay, so the halo picture. That's the other one. So apparently, when he jumped into the quote-unquote Grand Canyon, he did a number on himself.
Oh, yeah.
So his mugshot is with the halo.
I can't handle it. I look at it all the time, and it never gets less funny.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, how ridiculous. His halo doesn't really fit into the whole mugshot.
Well, that he went to court in that. Because I remember seeing it on the local news. He was actually wearing it in court.
He went to court like a year and something later, so he's been wearing this halo.
Well, when he got extradited, so when he finally was well enough to be extradited from Arizona back to Texas, I think he had to make an appearance in court, and he had that on.
It's so funny.
Ah, Lord. All right, so Detective Epperson traveled to Arizona on April 22nd with a search warrant to search Terrence's SUV. In the SUV, Epperson found a large amount of clothes, a suitcase, 2 laptops, an iPhone, a passport, 2 knives, and a suicide note. When the laptops were examined, it was found that Terrence had been remotely accessing Susan's email since before her murder. One email he accessed said that Susan would be at the studio on April 19th by 6:30 a.m. Terrence also had a photo of Susan and Jason on Valentine's Day in 2011. The image was named Whore.
So I just have to say this. I read an article today about Susan Loper's murder. At the beginning of the article said something like, Susan Loper, the same routine every day, and that would end up being her downfall. I was like, that's not fair to say. This guy accessed her emails to see when she was going to be at the studio, and she had an appointment with this lady at 6:30. Like, you don't deserve to, it's not your downfall to have this. I just think that was just kind of insensitive.
And everyone has a routine.
Right.
How is that, everybody goes to work at the same time, usually. So how is that? And I think the other thing, just to side note on that, I think that he also decided on that date because she was moving studios.
Right.
And he didn't know the layout of the other studio the way he knew this one.
Exactly. It was now or nothing.
Yeah. So on Terrence's calendar app on his iPhone, police found evidence proving that he had been obsessed with Susan since their breakup in 2009. He had multiple entries in the app. It resembled a journal. These are a few of the entries found in the app. November 29th, 2009. Lost her again, fucking eHarmony. December 13th, 2009, last time I saw her, and God must help. April 20th, 2010, by G. May 3rd, 2010, D-Day, SL gotta go, can't let a bastard have my hard work. December 9th, 2010, Decision Day for Smoke Her. March 11th, 2011, and March 4th, 2011, both said smoker. Did you notice that he bought the gun on April 20th, 2010?
He actually buys it on June 21st, 2010.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, but that's interesting that in his calendar he had been really planning it for about a year.
Do you know what April 20th is?
It's Hiller's birthday.
It's also when Timothy McVeigh took down the Oklahoma.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Forgot there were like a couple things that happened on that day.
Well, and they picked them for that day, for that reason. So that was definitely, and the fact that I think he probably would have done it on the 20th, but he knew that she was moving.
That's true.
I wonder what the significance of March 11th and April 4th were. I wonder if he had planned those days and it didn't work out for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish he would admit to this so we could know.
Yeah.
You know, or were those days where he was stalking her and maybe on, March 10th he was stalking her and she did something that pissed him off, or maybe he tried to give her a gift on March 10th and she said no, and so then he wrote in her calendar, like, March 11th, smoker.
Yeah, maybe.
Next, the police found out that Terrence purchased a 9mm handgun and 2 boxes of ammunition from a Fort Worth Cabela's on June 21st, 2010. The bullets found in the studio and in the field matched the same brand as one of the boxes of ammunition Terrence purchased at Cabela's.
48-year-old Terrence Black was extradited back to Texas and was held on $1 million bond. His trial began on August 20th, 2012. Pretty coincidental. During the trial, firearms expert Detective Luke Grant testified that the unfired rounds found in the studio and the field were most likely due to Terrence being unfamiliar with the gun. When the safety is engaged, a live round will be ejected. A friend of Terrence's testified that he was not interested in guns and was not knowledgeable about them. The gun has never been located.
Do you think that he got rid of his clothes and obviously the medical gloves he was wearing and the gun in the same place, and that's why they've never been found? Like, maybe he threw them in the Grand Canyon.
Could have. Though, I'm thinking that maybe he got rid of it before he ever left Texas, because if he got pulled over, then he'd want to get rid of it. There is one thing, one of the things in one of the stories I read where he got that gas. He got that in a city called the Colony, or town called the Colony, which is west of Frisco. And I wondered why he was there. And I knew he lived kind of near there, but I thought it was odd that he got gas there. But also pretty close to that is a lake.
Oh, I bet he stopped there.
He could have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's what's so nice about having you on the episode, is you know the geography of the area.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that was part of the reason why this was interesting to me. This was, I can see it. I can see where he went, and I can see in my mind, I've driven through there many times, or I know, which direction he would have had to have gone to leave to El Paso and that sort of thing. So he could easily have. It's a huge lake, and people that go missing in that lake, well, sometimes they're not found for weeks.
Wow. And a gun probably isn't going to float up to the surface.
Yeah, no.
Wow. And I think it's also interesting that I'm not a gun expert or anything. I need to have my dad on to speak to this, but
and a blue barrel.
Right. Oh God. Oh no. So basically what this gun expert was saying was that the 9mm, if the safety is engaged and you pull the trigger, then a live round is like just an unfired bullet is just going to come out. And so he had no idea that he had the safety on, so he was probably like click, click,
yeah,
twice in the studio, and the bullets just fell out. So then he gets mad and has to like grab her and smash stuff around. Then he tries to shoot her again outside. Still nothing, puts her in the car, then takes her out into that field and then tries to shoot her twice again, but still isn't working. And I can imagine him getting so mad that this gun isn't working that he just goes ballistic and just hits her so many times that her head becomes eggshell. Because, like you said, he planned to use this gun. That's why he bought it. He planned to use it. And so I think it's kind of obvious by the fact that he hit her so many times that he was just in a rage. And I think it would be frustrating, even more so that he couldn't get his weapon of choice to work.
Yeah.
So then he just starts hitting her with it. And if he's mad, he's not going to know when to stop.
Yeah. Well, I think he was beyond the point of return at that point. You know, the part that, the sad part is, I'm wondering if he just ambushed her. I'm wondering if he came up and hit her on the head with the gun to begin with, because she was physically fit. She 16 years worth of, instruction.
Yeah, and she did 21 years of being a fitness instructor.
Yeah. So, I mean, just that alone, you would think that, she would have been able. So I'm wondering, it does sound, I mean, he was pretty sneaky about it. So I'm wondering if that was what he did. He just, snuck in, the door was open, came up behind her. Who knows? Or, he pulled out the gun and hit her with it before she knew what could happen,
Right. And I think the purse on the ground, I think he probably, because at first when I was reading through this case, I thought, oh, he came up behind her as she was unlocking the studio. That's why the purse was on the ground. But no, they actually went into the studio. I think he put her, he was like, oh crap, I got to get the keys to the car. So he just dropped her purse outside. Like, he didn't care about it.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense that he just went in there and grabbed the keys. Yeah. Yeah, because he wouldn't have been able to get anywhere.
Right. I definitely think you're right, though. He had to hit her hard enough in the studio to get her to go in the car, because she was so physically fit that there's no way he could just drag her to the car. And also, how would he drive away without people noticing? Like, if they got on the highway, like, she'd be hitting the window and screaming, and
That's true. Yeah, and it didn't say that there was blood on the inside of the window, like handprints.
Mm-hmm. The handprint was on the outside. So he was wearing gloves, hit her, drove her to the car, and then maybe when he was trying to open the passenger side door, he had to place one of his hands on the window to get like balance, and that's where that bloody handprint came from. And I imagine he was dragging her by her hair, and that's why there was so much, there was the hair evidence and stuff.
Wow, that's pretty gruesome.
I can only hope that he really did hit her just once, because then that means that she most likely passed out and didn't suffer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing you can hope for in that situation. Not a good outcome at all.
Mm-mm.
During the trial, the prosecution said Terrence parked his vehicle in the apartment complex parking lot where Susan's SUV was found. Then he walked to the country club, kidnapped Susan, took her to the field, and killed her. Then he drove her car to the apartment complex parking lot and switched cars. So they're saying that they think that he killed her in the field. So I'm wondering if there was more evidence there.
I'm not sure. I think maybe they think that he killed her in the field just because they found those other 2 bullets.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Like, she was still alive, so why would he continue shooting her?
Right.
Unless she was. Yeah, that's true.
On August 30th, 2012, the jury, which was made up of 9 men and 3 women, which, by the way, I'm shocked by that, because you would want more women to be able to, sympathize with this woman who's been killed, deliberated for 4.5 hours before they came up with their verdict. Terrence was found guilty of capital murder. And just a side note here, the jury had 3 options. They had guilty of capital murder, they had guilty of murder, and then they had not guilty. And because the prosecution did not seek the death penalty with the capital murder, Terrence Black was automatically sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole.
I'm actually surprised they didn't seek the death penalty because...
I am too, because you guys love your death penalty.
Oh, we do. And you notice that he went to court literally a year after, literally like to the day. They don't mess around. They don't draw out trials here.
No. I mean, I'm glad they did life without parole because the death penalty does cost way more. And now he's going to sit in prison and think about what he did to this woman he supposedly loved.
Yeah, that's true. And that may be why, too. Well, I know recently the issue with death penalty cases has been that they don't have the drugs available. And also, you're right, it's a cost. So, you know, it's really expensive. So maybe they were just like, look, this is a slam dunk. We know this guy did it. He's never getting out. You know, we're good with that.
Yeah, because there was a lot of DNA evidence, like a lot more than most trials. They still, though, the defense the whole time was like, that's circumstantial. Just because he bought a gun beforehand doesn't mean he was going to use it to kill her. Just because he accessed her emails doesn't mean he was going to kill her. Just because his hair was in her car doesn't mean he was the killer. Like, well, what does it mean then?
Just because he wrote down that, you know, he wanted to smoke her doesn't mean, you know, maybe he just wanted to go to a barbecue with her. I don't know.
Right. It's just circumstantial.
That is so ridiculous. I mean, but what other defense could they possibly have?
That's true. Of course he pled not guilty.
Of course.
Of course. So this is part of Susan Loper's obituary. It says, Loper, Susan Miller, age 40, of Frisco, Texas, passed away on April 19th, 2011. Susan was born on April 13th, 1971, in Wichita Falls, Texas, to Morris O. and Catherine R. Miller. Susan graduated in 1989 from S.H. Ryder High School in Wichita Falls, Texas, and then attended American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City. After AMDA, Susan spent several years starring in off-Broadway shows, full-length plays, and musical performances. Her career in the fitness industry spanned 21 years, with 16 of those years as a personal trainer, nutritional counselor, aerobics, yoga, and Pilates instructor at Glen Eagles Country Club. During this time, Susan earned numerous certifications in nutrition and health and fitness. Susan is survived by her son, Jake Loper of Frisco, Texas, parents, Morris and Catherine Miller of Wichita Falls, sister and brother-in-law, Leah and Jay Russell of Wichita Falls, nephews, Brendan and Chase Russell, great-nephews, Ashton and Braden Russell, numerous aunts, uncles, cousins, and many friends. Susan is preceded in death by her grandparents. A memorial service will be held at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, April 27, 2011, at Hope Fellowship Church in Frisco, Texas, with Pastor John McKenzie officiating. She will be laid to rest at her final resting place at a later date in Bowie, Texas, with her family and close friends in attendance.
Wow, that's, you know, the fact that she went to school and worked in New York for all those years, and she came back home, and this is where she experienced that. You know, that you would think that normally, I mean, this is a safe city. This is extremely highly safe. I mean, there are very few murders even as quickly as we're growing, you know. So it's, you know, I just hope that her family, her son especially, that, you know, that they have maybe tapes of her shows and they can still go back and see those.
Yeah, because her son was only 8.
Yeah. So that was 2011, so 6 years ago. Yeah, so 14 now. Yeah.
So did you know anything about Susan Loper prior to this episode?
No, the only thing I knew was what I had seen on the news. Like I said, I remembered that story. I remembered the halo in the courtroom. And
You can't forget that.
well, just the mugshot. They showed that picture over and over and over again. So I did recall that. But until, you know, we had talked about me coming on, I completely... I knew that there was another story. The other big one around here was Christina Morris' case. And that one was real close too. Very, very close to where this happened. But it was, I thought about that, when I was kind of looking at some stories and some things that had happened around here, and really started thinking about that one. And then when I realized exactly where it had happened and realized how close I am to that area every day, it's just, I'm like, how did I forget that? So
I kind of feel bad that now every time you drive by, you're like, oh, I'm passing by where she was dumped.
well, I mean, but you know what? I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like us being here and being able to tell her story and let people remember her. Hopefully that's a good thing.
So do you have any final thoughts on Susan Loper?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I'm hoping he's having a good old time with his halo in prison.
How uncomfortable would it be to sleep in that thing? You think the prison cots are bad now?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the kind of pain that you probably have forever?
Good.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for being my road trip buddy, Yolanda. Before we reach our destination, would you like to play a quick road trip game?
Sure.
All right. So let's start with a little Texas trivia.
Oh, great. That's not my forte in any way.
Well, we'll just see how smart you are.
Probably not smart enough.
All intelligence should be based off of trivia questions.
Oh, God, then I'm in trouble.
What is the nickname for Texas?
Oh my gosh. Seriously, I don't know this one. The Lone Star State.
There you go.
Oh, dear Lord. Everything is stars here. Seriously, they are everywhere.
I know, it drives me crazy.
It's irritating.
What is the state pepper?
There's a state pepper? Dr. Pepper?
Wouldn't that be funny?
Well, it was born here.
I know.
I don't know. What is it?
The jalapeno.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
What is the state vegetable?
Corn?
That's probably ours in Kansas. It's the 1015 sweet onion. Oh my God, how did you not know that?
Why would I know that?
What is the state fruit?
The state fruit. Blackberry?
Good guess, but it's Texas red grapefruit.
Well, that wasn't even close. Okay.
What is the official food dish of Texas?
Chicken fried steak.
Oh, yum. You're wrong, though. It's chili.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised it wasn't a barbecue dish.
I think that's more like Mississippi, right?
Well, actually, Kansas City is the barbecue
that's
capital, which I was surprised to learn as an adult. What is the state small mammal? You see these dead on the side of the road all the time.
Yeah, I wanted to say groundhog. The aardvark. The armadillo. God.
I'm going to keep that in.
That's funny.
What is the state large mammal?
Large mammal.
You have a football team named after it.
We do. The cowboy? I don't know.
The longhorn.
Oh, okay. Why did I not think that they were... Okay, you know what? I need to go back to school because I have no freaking clue.
All right, last Texas question. In what Texas town was Dr. Pepper invented?
Waco?
You go, girl.
I got it?
Yeah.
Yay! I got one.
In 1885.
Wow. Well, you see, I'm a Texas transplant, so...
That's okay. I knew none of these answers before either.
We can talk about California, and I could probably give you a whole bunch more information.
California's more exciting.
Sorta. It's more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
That's for
All right.
sure.
We just have a few Grand Canyon trivia questions. In what year did the Grand Canyon become a national park?
1910?
Oh, you're really close. It was 1919.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, closer than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's really close. All right, roughly how many acres does the Grand Canyon span?
Oh, I have no clue. These acres are ginormous.
It was way more than I thought it was going to be. Are you ready?
Yeah, what is it?
1,215,375 acres.
I want to know who measured that.
Right?
And
Oh,
how.
what a job. All right, this is the last question. What is the average width of the Grand Canyon in miles?
50?
10. I would have thought more. I would have thought much higher, just like you, because it seems like it would be so much bigger.
So I'm guessing that's just really long then. Well, yeah, that would make sense. It's longer than it is wide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess you can see across, right? So I don't know. Weren't you supposed to go to the Grand Canyon? Isn't that a story that you...
I don't want to talk about it.
I remember that.
For those of you who don't know, my husband and I went to Las Vegas and we rented a car and we put in this spot in our GPS and it took us to a whole bunch of different Indian reservations and there was no signal. And so we finally pulled off at what I can only imagine to be a gas station from a horror movie. And the lady was like, yeah, everyone's GPS brings them here. You're actually hours past where you needed to be. So then we turned back around and we finally, make our way to the Grand Canyon. And we literally showed up as it got dark. And so we couldn't see anything. And then we also had no gas. But the Grand Canyon where we were at is literally in the middle of nowhere. And so we had to pay $10 a gallon to buy from the fire department so that we could actually get back to some sort of civilization and buy more gas. So I got really close to the Grand Canyon, within, walking distance, but I did fly over it. But it's a little sore subject for me because...
That whole trip was a source of issues, wasn't it?
It was the worst trip of my life, and I got appendicitis in St. Louis, so that should tell you something.
I remember when you came back and discussed that entire trip, I was dying. I'm like, how does the... I mean, you told it even better the first time, but oh my gosh.
Because I was still really mad about it, and now I'm just depressed.
But you know what? You have great stories forever, see? And
That's
it's podcast material.
That's true. I was going to tell you that the minimum width of the Grand Canyon is 600 feet at what's called Marble Canyon, and the maximum is 18 miles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to go one day. Maybe you'll go with me.
Yeah, let's do this over again. It's really beautiful. I mean, I remember flying over it and just being absolutely in awe. Just wish I could be next to it.
Just don't jump off the side.
Oh, God. I don't want to wear a halo. I'm no Rance.
You already have a halo, Haley.
Oh.
Haley and her halo. Oh, Halloween costume right there.
God. Well, thank you for coming along for the ride.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciated you asking me to be on.
Until next time, remember to check your back seats, and I'll see you at the next rest stop.
I would like to apologize for an error I made on episode 3. In the episode, I referred to the Leavenworth, Kansas prison Carl Panzer was incarcerated in as Leavenworth Prison. In Leavenworth, Kansas, there are actually 2 prisons. The federal prison is titled the United States Penitentiary Leavenworth, or USP. The military prison is titled the United States Disciplinary Barracks, or USDB. While Carl was sentenced to prison for stealing things off the military base, he was sentenced to the USDB. When he was sentenced for his various crimes years later, he was sentenced and hung at the USP. In the game at the end of the episode, I stated that Chelsea Manning and Charles Ng were both incarcerated in the Leavenworth prison, when in fact they were both incarcerated in the USDB. I would like to give a big shout out and thank you to content editor Laura Taylor and research assistant Maria Ortiz. I am happy to announce a contest for everyone who leaves a review. If you leave a review in the month of August or September, you will be entered to win the Murder Road Trip Survival Pack. You can find more details on our website or any social media site. H.H. Domes and I would like to do something to help the residents and animals of Houston. For the rest of August and September, you can send me $1 or more, and I will send you a sticker in return. I will then donate 100% of the proceeds to the Red Cross and the SPCA. You can send your donation through PayPal to murderroadtrippodcast@gmail.com. Please make sure to put your name and address in the comments section of PayPal. I will be making weekly donations so the money gets there before October 1st. You can find Murder Road Trip at murderroadtrip.com, on Instagram and Twitter at MurderTrip, and on Facebook at MRT Podcast. If you're interested in continuing the discussion, you can join the Murder Road Trip podcast group on Facebook. Make sure to check out the Murder Road Trip playlist on Spotify. You can even add songs to the playlist. Starting September 4th, I will be featured on the new podcast from Lainey, who hosts True Crime Fan Club. The new podcast is called We're All Just Pretending. I will be giving bad advice on purpose. There will be a promo for that show at the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. If you'd like to listen to the episodes before everyone else, listen to bonus content, and even get exclusive merchandise, you can check out Murder Road Trip on Patreon. Please stay tuned after the music to hear from some other great podcasts.
Do you and your significant other ever get into discussions that no one else could possibly think are interesting or funny?
Do your friends and family wonder, what could these two have in common?
If the answer is yes, you should check out our podcast. I'm Mark.
I'm Yolanda, and together we're not perfect or functional.
A podcast where our discussions about pop culture, true crime, sports, and every random topic that pops in our head highlight where we found common ground,
or not,
while embracing our dysfunction.
We promise to include you in our smart-ass-tastic world and make you feel right at home.
You can find us wherever you subscribe to podcasts, notperfectorfunctional.com, and on Facebook and Twitter.
Take a second and check us out. Until then, stay dysfunctional.
Hey, Krista. Hey, Lily. Did you know in your lifetime you'll pass a murderer 36 times? I did. And you know why? Why? Because we're 36 Times, a Canadian true crime podcast which covers crimes in the Great White North. Oh, right! Every episode we focus on a major crime and then we lighten things up with a kooky one.
We talk about everything from the criminal justice system itself to animals arguably not doing what they should, bringing you true crime with a shot of maple syrup.
Catch our episodes bi-weekly on iTunes or your favorite, that's favorite with a U, podcast app.
Hi, I'm Lainey, host of the new podcast We're All Just Pretending. It's a podcast that has elements of Dear Abby with a twist of Post Secret. Every episode, I'll read listener questions and provide advice and insight as a friend. My own pod friends will even join in and offer their advice on parenting, relationships, and even give you really bad advice on purpose. Since we all have secrets to share, there'll also be a segment focusing on letting the skeletons out of your closet. If you're looking for advice or want to share a secret, head to allpretendingpod.com. And remember, we're all just pretending here.
Hi, I'm Kim.
And I'm Felicia.
And we're from the Harry Potter Revisited podcast.
Each episode is based on the next chapter in the series.
We make inappropriate jokes and crass comments along the way.
Check out Harry Potter Revisited on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app.
Bye, Felicia.